So hello everyone, my name is Sheel and I'm here to show you how to create an EMR notebook which obviously runs on an EMR cluster. And I'm also going to show you how to attach a Git repository to your notebook. Now there are certain prerequisites for all of this to happen, and I'm going to show you in a minute uh, the sequence of steps that need to be carried out in order to achieve this. So here we go. So these are the steps that we need to carry out. We need to create a cluster in the private subnet. That's a mandatory step for, in order to be able to attach a Git repository to your notebook, as we'll see later down in this video. The next step is to, there's a small setting that comes with the EMR cluster. It by default, your cluster is visible to none, and you have to change it to all. And followed by that, you can go ahead, create your notebook on this cluster, and then there are a few extra security groups. I'm going to explain a bit about that as well when it comes to that. And followed by that, your EMR notebook is ready. The only step left is to connect your Git repository to the notebook, and that's all there is to this. So let's get started. So before we go ahead, I wanted to make a few points clear about what is needed when you create a cluster with a notebook on top of it. The first thing is that the cluster mandatorily needs to have a Hadoop, Spark, and Livy installed, and you need to have a minimum of 5.18.0, the EMR release version, and clusters with multiple master nodes are not supported. So with this in mind, we can go ahead and create the cluster. There are a bunch of considerations that the AWS documentation has listed out. In my opinion, when I tried to follow those recommendations, I could not really achieve much success. So I'm going to show you what I did to get the cluster running. And in fact, one of them is in contrast to what the documentation says, and which is point 2. The documentation says that you need to keep your the visible to all users option checked to false, checked to none. And in from what I observed, it works only if you mark all the visible or mark the cluster visible to all. So with this, we can go ahead and start creating the cluster. So here we are. I am going to go on advanced options. I'm going to select 5.30.1. I'm good there. I need to mandatorily have Spark, Hadoop, and Livy. Might as well have Hive. Does not hurt. I do not want any step. I'm going to click on next, and here is where I choose a private subnet, which would be this. I'm all right with the number of master nodes and the core nodes. I'm going to leave the rest of the config values at what they currently stand. I'm going to click on next. I don't want this for the sake of simplicity. I don't want logging. I might as well turn off the termination protection. I'm going to go next. And I'm good here, and I'm going to create the cluster. I'll come back to you when the cluster is ready. All right, so now the cluster is ready, and I can go ahead and make the small change in step 2, that is mark the cluster visible to all users. Okay, so now we can go to step 3, which is to create a notebook on this cluster. I choose the cluster that I just created, and we are done with step 3 as well. Now there are a couple of extra security groups that you need to add to your notebook as well as your EMR cluster. So we just spoke about the fact that your EMR cluster mandatorily needs to have Livy among the other things that we spoke about, that is Hadoop and Spark. So Livy is the interface as far as the EMR cluster is concerned for the notebook. So it's pretty intuitive that you need a couple of security groups. So Livy operates on port 18888. Now, for the connection to get established, there are a couple of security groups needed. On the EMR cluster side, you need to allow the cluster to accept inbound connections on port 18888. And on the notebook side, you need to allow an outbound connection to port 18888. So that's what we are going to do now. So here we are. I have created two security groups. One is by the name SGM and the other is by the name SGN, M standing for the master instance and N standing for the notebook itself. So if I show you the inbound rules for the master instance, all I'm saying is I allow inbound connections on port 18888 from the notebook instance security group. And in the notebooks instances security group, all I do is to allow an outbound connection to the master instance of the EMR cluster on port 18888. So with that done, the only thing next that we are left with is to allow an outbound connection into the internet. And this is specifically for the GitHub repository because this is not within the AWS landscape. So to allow that to happen, we add this one more outbound rule, and that is pretty much all we have to do as far as the security groups are concerned. We straight away go ahead to the notebook console and choose those security groups. The master instance is already configured at SGM. All I need to do is to configure the notebook instance to use the SGN security group. We are good here. As far as this default role is concerned, if we are going to go ahead and add a Git repository, which we are going to do in this video, this default role needs to have the AWS secrets manager read and write access. So all you have to do is to go to your IAM console and add the particular policy, and you can come back from here and continue. So I'm going to leave all the other detail, configs at default as they stand right now, and I'm going to connect the Git repository only after the notebook is started. You cannot add a Git repository if the notebook is not started. So I'm going to go ahead and create a notebook. So this does not take too long for the notebook to start. And once it's started, we can go ahead and attach the Git repository. And the notebook is ready. So now we are headed with the last step, which is to add the Git repository. I already have a repository in place. All I can do is to show you how to add a Git repository. We can just fill out the details, the repository name. This can be any name that you want this to be, followed by the Git repository URL, the HTTPS URL, not the SSH URL, followed by the branch name. The branch name has to exist already. You cannot have the branch name created on the fly. That is one thing. And the last thing is the Git credentials. If you have an existing credentials like I do, I simply use them, or I can go ahead create a new secret. When I enter the details here, they go and sit into the AWS secrets manager. So that's all about it. I can show you what my credentials look like. And with this in place, I can straight away go and I can either attach the notebook from here, or I can go to the notebooks and attach the repository. So this takes about a minute or two to attach your Git repository to the notebook, and once we are done, we are going to go ahead to we are going to open the notebook and start working on it. So now that the Git repository is linked to the notebook, we are going to go ahead, open the Jupyter notebook, and we should be seeing our Git repo contents on this notebook. And there you go. We do see the contents that I have from my Git repository over here. I can open my notebook. This was one of the notebooks that I had created already and exported to Git. And here you go. I have my contents from the Git repository being shown, and I can add to this, and further down the line, I can push my contents back to Git repository once I'm done with my practice. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do keep watching out the space for the following videos. Thank you so much. Bye.